what's under the hood. Don't wanna be anything but good, and I can't be, but something's there, and I act like I don't care. Blissfully unaware, and it's killing me. If life is one big disappointment, then maybe I'm doing this thing right. But if this all points to something bigger, then I'll get back up and fight. Get back up and fight. It knocked me down, left me bleeding on the ground, and when no one was around, oh, they laughed at me. But if life is one big disappointment, well, then maybe I'm doing this thing right. But if this all points to something bigger, then I'll get back up and fight. 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 And I never was much of a fighter. And I never was.
Hey friends, welcome to Ask Joe. Sorry I'm a couple minutes late. It took a lot to get this set up. So I hope, hold on, let me turn this off. I hope that you can see me. There's a lot of sunshine behind me. So I look angelic, really. So I'll figure out lighting. We'll get all that looking a little bit better. But welcome to the studio. I'll give you the quick tour. Let me know you can see and hear me. It is bright. We may have to roll in some gobos or cover up some of the, or do it at nighttime. Let me give you the quick tour. So, hi. To my right, stairs to go upstairs, a bathroom, keyboard, treatment, speakers, gobo. Behind me, nice little sitting area with a fireplace. And then over there, some amps. And then to my left, mic locker. And then back behind me, or back behind you, is then a bunch of storage. And some lights, of course, that aren't really doing what they should be doing. So, anyway, go back to where you were. This is the new and improved, or just new, studio. Cool, I'm seeing folks can see and hear me. Let me expand this chat out. So yeah, thank you. I literally have been spent the entire last 2 days getting everything set up, and I've gotten to this point where I can have one microphone. Yeah. I wonder if it's actually not an acoustic nightmare because of the drop tile ceiling and then carpet. It's actually pretty dead in here. Not super dead, but kind of. Hang on. We'll just live with it for now. I don't want to waste your time. I want to get to your questions. Let's do the intro real quick, like, and then we'll make everything right again. Let me open up the screen. See, this is how you're going to see me anyway. See, so I'm not centered though, am I? Whoop. Whoop. There we go. This is really weird. You're really weird. Just kidding. You know I love you, Stian. Even though I say your name weird all the time. I see all your comments. I got a lot of folks here live, which is super fun. Thanks for hanging out. I'm glad you is here. Okay. How do I move this? Move that over here. There we go. Okay. Got a lot of people here. Let's do the intro. I'm just gonna. I don't even know if this is even. I don't even think my fade report's not even on. Okay, let's just do. This is Ask Joe number 211, the new studio / frazzled edition. That was kind of awesome. / frazzled edition. This is Ask Joe number 211. Edit that back just a smidge. This is Ask. I sound frazzled, don't I? Boink, boink. 211. This is Ask Joe number. This is Ask Joe number 211, the new studio / frazzled edition. That'll work for me. Does that work? Does that work for you? Yeah, good. All right, cool. All right, let's do this thing. We start the recording, and then we'll go. Here we go. This is Ask Joe number 211, the new studio / frazzled edition. Hey everybody, I forgot to record, and I forgot to do it. Son of a gun, let's do it again. I forgot to hit record. Real professional here, folks. You're watching professionalism at work. Let's try this again. This is Ask Joe number 211, the new studio / frazzled edition. Nope, I have a better idea. I'm going to do it this way, so you don't see me sitting here awkwardly. I'll start it like that. Oh, yeah, this is going to be good. Okay, here we go. This is Ask Joe number 211, the new studio / frazzled edition. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Ask Joe number 211. This is the first thing I've done from my new studio. You may think, Joe, didn't you just move like 10 minutes ago? Yep. But that's neither here nor there. I have moved again. We found a new ugly house to go renovate, and my wife's going to make it pretty. It'll take us a little while. We'll get there. And the studio, the basement, is actually finished. Let me give you a quick tour. I gave folks who were here early a tour real quick. But, hi, camera. So, if we look around, over here, we've got some mic locker action. Got my amps back there and a desk. Place to sit, fireplace, guitars, bathroom, keyboard, some treatment. I've still got to figure out the treatment side of things. And if we look behind the desk, got a lot of space. I can actually walk behind my desk, which is super nice. Also got some nice drop tile ceilings, which will be great. I've 2 studios back, I had a room with drop tile, and it was actually a great sounding room. So as big as this space is, and you could do lots of fun things in here, it's still not super lively. And I've got some different treatment around, but I'll be diving into that more. But this is the new space. There is an unfinished room over there where I could maybe do recording. There's a bedroom back there that we're not using currently, but it'll probably end up being a guest room, so I can't really use that. There's even like a weird unfinished thing under the porch over here. But it is like a walkout basement, which is nice. I can see deer walking out over there, which is cool. So, yeah. So thank you for all of you. Got a lot of folks here live. Probably the biggest crowd we've had live in a long time. So hi, everybody. Hello. Thanks for being here. I'm going to answer your questions, all you live folks. If you want to have questions about studio setup organization, because I've been in that world for the last 48 hours, or just questions in general, excuse me, about anything that's on your little heart, I will do my best to answer as many as I can for as long as I can before my voice decides to give out. Just a couple of things. I want to talk a little bit about moving the studio and some things to consider. Just from making the studio feel more sane, because I've had to rethink how I'm going to do everything, being that it's a new space. And then we'll jump into your questions. So I'm not going to talk too long because I'd rather just you tell me what you want to talk about. But one thing that I've done, and I want to recommend this, and I don't have it in front of me, so I can't show it to you. But there's Wayne back there. Oh, he wants to come in. Biggest thing is, everybody probably has this. I've got a box of old cables and adapters and things that has just kind of moved from one space to the next. And when I need something, I go digging through the box and get super frustrated because it's all tangled together. Get yourself some of those Velcro cable ties. Now, you may all already have that, and you may think, Joe, you're an idiot. Of course we've got these cable ties. But they sell them on Amazon super cheap. You can get a wrap of them, a couple different colors, black and gray, for super cheap. And then just anything that has a cable, wrap that sucker up. Then I can go like back over in that one of those closets down there. I've got a couple of like milk crates with tons of adapters and cables and everything. And all of them are secured now as of this morning, with each individual one has a Velcro tie on it. So if I need a USB cable like I did when I was setting up all my hard drives a few minutes ago, I just went to that thing, found one, pulled it out. Nothing was tangled. Life was awesome. Same thing with mic cables over in the mic locker. Anything has now been wrapped, which makes life so much easier. I've been meaning to do that for years with all my cables, and now I have forced myself to, which is super helpful. So that's my one handy-dandy moving tip for you. Or, you know what, not a moving tip, it's just a studio life tip. If you have a studio long enough, you will amass a bunch of stuff that you may need one day in the future, and you'll just throw it in a box. And if you do that, you're going to make your life a lot more frustrating. The other big thing is try to separate out types of cables. So I've got audio cables in one bin, power cables in another, and then like computer digital cables in another, which is pretty sweet. Boom. I was trying to be all cute and get the boom in there, and I forgot where it was supposed to. Look at that. I mean, I got it in there, but it was awkward. Welcome back. It's time for your questions. So shoot your questions over in the chat, and I will answer as many as I can. Remember, two things to remember. One, ask your questions because there's a good chance that somebody else has that same question. And you asking it, they may not be able to attend live, or they may be too shy to ask. So ask your question. Secondly, these Ask Joes are now back. We're now back into the rotation of Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Central. So show up, go to homestudiocorner.com/calendar, and there'll be a little reminder. It'll be on your calendar, and it'll remind you to show up at 1 p.m. If you've subscribed to that calendar in the past, I've had to replace it, so go resubscribe to that. And then if I do anything else, any other kind of live streams or webinars or things like that, they'll show up on the calendar too, which is kind of a nice welcome intrusion, right? Right. Sure. Let's go with that. All right, let's jump into your questions. Steve Rossbotham, one of my favorite Brits, who is ever so faithful here on Le Podcast, is asking, what, if any, are the early problems you found with the room? So there's an episode of Gilder Cam that goes into my room quite a bit, and we'll be talking a lot about this in the future as I figure out this room. The first big thing, my last space was on the end of the house, so it wasn't really, the control room wasn't underneath anyone. It was off to the side, and then the back tracking room was underneath one of my daughter's bedrooms. So for the most part, completely isolated, completely silent. I could be down there with super loud guitars, and no one would hear it, and they could be running around, and I probably wouldn't hear them either. The problem with this space currently is like our living room is right there, and like our front room is there, and our kitchen's there. So when kids are home and running around, you could definitely hear it. I could probably put some insulation between the drop ceiling and the floor because there's not really anything there. if I need to. But the other thing is, the girls will be in kindergarten next year, so the kids will be gone most of the day when I'll be down here working, and the bedrooms are all down there, so I can still work at night, and they won't be able to hear anything. But yeah, during the day when they're here is going to be tricky. But I mean, it's not that big of a deal. Especially, I mean, if I'm doing the podcast, you'll probably hear them come home from school late. You probably won't today, but you may hear them run around. Who cares, right? You can always re-record it. You can always figure out some other solution. But yeah, that's the biggest thing, I think. Also, it's just a big room, and trying to figure out, my speakers are off the wall, which is just a different dynamic. Trying to figure out treatment, not wanting to cover the place in treatment, wanting it to stay kind of cool and look neat, but also be functional. So yeah, I just got to figure out all that kind of stuff. Jonathan Nosp says, if you were working on a large studio with outboard gear patch bay that you are not familiar with and run into issues, what is the most efficient way to troubleshoot? That's a really good question. So in general, like, what's a good way to troubleshoot any problem when it comes to something technical, or let's say audio specifically? For me, it's just start with the simplest connection you can make and make sure that works. So if you've got a mic and you're routing through a patch panel into an outboard preamp, into a outboard EQ, into an outboard compressor, then into a channel on the board, and then that's going out to Pro Tools or however you've got it set up. Go as simple as possible. So the first thing would be go from microphone and then patch directly into the board, or just microphone to preamp into the DAW, and make sure you've got signal there. Then add in elements. So add in the compressor, add in the EQ, and start from there. And if you go down to the simplest and you're still not getting signal, now it's really only the mic or the cable or the preamp or the cable, one of the other cables involved. And then you just kind of troubleshoot. Cables do go bad. I had all sorts of problems with my previous PreSonus Studio Live. It just kept losing connection, or it would never, like, the computer would never recognize it. And I can't remember all the details, but I think I was on like the phone with support and trying to, like, just troubleshooting all sorts of stuff. It turns out it was just a bad Firewire cable, Firewire 400. It never moved. It literally just stayed there. And one day it went bad. I put in a new one and everything worked fine. I never would have suspected that. So a lot of this is you just run into enough, if you do this enough times, you run into enough problems to where you figure them out, and then you'll be able to figure them out the next time. Jonathan says, specifically having issues with headphone sends. It was working as I patched in Mike's headphone send oddly cut out. Had to go diving behind the racks and still couldn't figure out. The thing with patch bays is there's the whole, is it normaled? Is it half normaled? Is it full normaled? And sometimes patching things can break connections to other things, which sounds like maybe what happened. Patch bays aren't intuitive unless you know how things are wired. So is the top row automatically wired to the bottom row and it stays that way until you patch something in? Or is it always wired no matter what you patch? Or is it completely not connected at all and you have to manually patch them in? I love patch bays. I don't have one, but I mean, it's just fun to go start. You feel like an old telephone operator. I'll connect you. It's super fun. But yeah, they can be, if it's not yours, you really need to, if you're going to be in a studio and you know how to run everything, like from a gear standpoint, make sure they explain the patch bay to you, because everyone does it different and there are different ways to do it. And if you don't know, you're going to be up a creek. Paul Ferrield says, the intro track you used today has an amazing bass tone with a tight, punchy bottom. I am not mature enough for these comments. Tight, punchy bottom. Any tips to get a jazz-style bass to have that kind of sonic pocket? So that's my brother-in-law, Joel Bazaire, who's a fabulous bass player, and he's always, what I love about him is he does not do clean tone at all. His tone gets really gnarly. And I want to say the bass he played on that track was a Reverend 5-string, which has a sort of a jazz bass sort of sound, but a little more aggressive. So it could just be the bass, but in general, what I found is, and a lot of bass players I talk to, nobody likes to record clean. So if you go through a bass amp or some sort of, if you're just going in direct, a lot of my brother-in-law will run through like a there's a SansAmp pedal, what's it called? The VT bass that just makes it sounds a lot like an Ampeg rig. And so he'll dial up the drive on that to where it's got this kind of sort of sound to it, where it's almost buzzing. And we may dial it back, but in the mix you don't hear that as much. It just cuts through and has a big bottom end. And there were a couple sessions. That's from the last EP that I released. There were a couple of songs where he went too aggressive on the tone, and we said, "Hey, dial that back." But on that particular song, which is Running Around, I think we just went for a bigger, warmer tone. But yeah, I mean, I mixed it, and I'm sure I did some things to it in the mix, but for the most part, that's his tone between his fingers, his guitar, his pedal board, then going direct in. We also ran him into like an LA 610 preamp with compression, so that's going to beef a lot of things up as well. Bungle Spice says, why would I ever want to use a pre-fader for my aux sends? I can't really think of a time in which I wouldn't want the effects to follow the original tracks. Makes stem printing and soloing a nightmare in Pro Tools. That's a good question. I use pre-fader only for specific things, and you don't... Okay, so this one situation I'll tell you is if I want to do some sort of parallel processing on a vocal. Let's say I've got a vocal, and I want to run it through a distortion, but on a separate fader, so I've got a fader to control that. You could just duplicate the track, problem solved, but if for some reason I don't want to do that, or it's late in the mix, and I really just want to take what I've got and just send it to something else to get some distortion to blend in, a lot of times I'll use a pre-fader send for that. That way I can have, if you use post-fader send and you've pulled the vocal down, you may need more volume going into that distress. Well, I can't talk. Into that distortion, and with the volume down, you might not be able to get that much volume. Pre-fader typically is a hotter volume, although you can't just turn it up on a post-fader send, and that's kind of the same deal. Or if you just don't want the automation to affect it, you want it to just be a simple, straight copy of the signal, that's when you would do it. But the majority of the time when I'm using sends, they're post-fader sends. That's really the only example. And even in those situations, a lot of times I'm duplicating the track and slapping a distortion on the track itself. So kind of, I can't even think of the last time I did a pre-fader send. It's for stuff like that, where maybe I want to send the vocal to a reverb for one spot, but I need it to be super loud. I might do pre-fader send and jack it up. But again, you could jack it up with a post-fader send. So that was not the super best answer ever. Aaron May says, hi, Joe. What's up with the EP, with EP number 4, the 4th EP of the year? So you may remember, beginning of the year, I set out to release 4 EPs in 2017. And so far, I've done 3. Right on like February 1st, March, April, May, June 1st, September 1st, and then December 1st was supposed to be the next one. I'm not going to make that deadline because that is like 9 days away. 10 days away, and with moving and everything else. But I will release one in December. That'll be the 4th. I think it's going to be more piano-based, maybe more chill. I maybe have said December 1st, so I'm missing that deadline if that's what I told you. But it'll be out. It'll be good. I keep thinking Christmas, and then like a Christmas EP, then I decide against it, which is probably a good idea. How would you approach recording and mixing in an untreated room? Just do it. Do it and see what happens. You treat as best you can. Like right now, I've got a gobo there handling the reflections off of that wall. I've got some treatment there handling reflections off that wall. I probably could hang something here, but then again, it's not super reflecting because they're ceiling tiles. And I didn't have any in my last place either. And just listening, like I'm sitting in this room talking. In my last space, which was a smaller room but with a big wood wall, when I talked, it reverberated around the room a lot more. And here it doesn't. With all the carpet and the ceiling and then the little treatment that I have, it's a fairly dry-sounding space. Now, if I sang a vocal and then compressed it heavily, you'd probably hear the room, which is why I would probably put some gobos around me to make it a smaller-sounding space for that if I didn't want that room sound. But as long as the room isn't super, super reverberant, like hardwood floors, drywall ceiling where it's just completely reverberating. If it's a reasonable sounding room, I think just start working and see what happens. The thing about I've told this story before. I was producing something for Brooke Wagner years ago, and she wanted to do vocals for this project, and it was back when Owen was a baby and taking naps all day. We were in this tiny house, and there just wasn't a way to do that session at our house without waking the baby, or the baby getting on the vocal track. So we did it at Brooke's house. It was kind of a lower budget deal. We didn't go to a studio, and I just brought all my stuff. set it up, and then sorry, I want to make sure this doesn't cut me off. Brought all my stuff, I set it up, and then we went into her like guest bedroom, and we just set up a mic, and we put her kind of with her back to the closet, and set the mic in front of her, and we listened, and it sounded fine, and we did the whole. It was like a 4 or 5 song EP, just recorded it that way. It worked fine. Was it a treated room? No. I brought a couple pieces of foam that we ended up not even using. It just sounded fine. And actually, if you're a Dueling Mixes member, we mixed one of those songs. It's called something about breakfast. Room for breakfast, late for breakfast. It's in the archives. We did it in probably the first year or so. Really fun piano kind of girl rock thing, which was fun. Okay, I see lots of questions. I'm going to try to get to as many as I can, and I may try to answer them more quickly so I can get to more questions. Do you ever play slide guitar? No. How would you approach record? Oh, I already answered that one. I saw one from, I'm losing my mind. I thought I saw one from, where'd you go? Doodly-doo. As I'm trying to save time, I'm actually losing time. Truckee says, what are you liking most about the Studio Live? I like how flexible it is, and I like that it's got those different compressor and EQ models. They do sound nice. Like, I'm really loving diving into 1176 more and more, which is great. Don't understand that question, so I won't answer it. Are you going to do another Mix Together series? Maybe. I've got 2 full ones. And then I've got a bunch of courses, a few courses that kind of go into more depth in mixing, but I'm sure I will at some point. How big is the new studio room? It's about this big, Johnny. I don't know, maybe 20 by 20? I couldn't even tell you. Chris, thank you. The song is called Thanks for Breakfast, and it was back from 2013 in Dueling Mixes. Chris, you're the man. Let's see. What if you have a really small room? Really small rooms can be easy in the sense that you don't have to. You could put up just a couple of pieces of treatment, and it'll sound pretty good, right? It'll deal with the reverberations. You don't need, if this room had like tile floors and like drywall ceiling, I would have to treat the mess out of it. Lay a big rug down, put stuff all over the wall, maybe put some stuff on the ceilings just to get it to not be super reverberant. Because in a lot of ways, the bigger rooms aren't great unless you're doing like drums and you want big old drum sound, which is cool. So for smaller rooms, you don't have to treat it as much. Johnny Lipsham, who's here on the live stream, he does a lot of live streaming too. You should check out his channel, Johnny Lipsham Studios. He has a small space, 9 foot by 7 foot. I'm guessing that's feet and not meters because that would be huge. And so Johnny, if you go look at his videos, he doesn't have to have a lot of treatment. He's got some foam on the sides, some RLX on the sides to get those first reflections. He's got some bass traps in the corners, and he might have a few things on the back wall. I don't know about his ceiling, but I think the floor might be carpet. And it works. And he doesn't have to do lots of treatment. So small rooms can be good. Sam Canuck, have you had any good whistling sessions lately? I've had one whistling session in my career, and that was you, buddy. And I don't even know if you ended up using it. I bet you did, because I was dope. I want some royalties when that thing gets a Grammy. Ben Holmes, hey Ben, says, do you still make time to practice guitar or piano, or do you just focus on playing what you need when you need to record? It's a good question. I am bad about like practicing just for the sake of practicing. Usually if I'm playing, I'm writing something or I'm rehearsing for be playing a lot more on Sundays with church. And that's my rehearsing, or I'm recording. And to me, I was watching a video. There's a guy in Nashville, a guitar player. I forgot his name. He's Filipino. Let me find him real quick because his YouTube channel is really fun. If you're a guitar player, he had a video about what it's like to be a touring musician in Nashville. He kind of did like a vlog on tour, and then I've been watching a few other videos of his. RJ Ronquillo. Go check him out on YouTube. Ronquillo with the QU in there. Anyway, super cool guy, and he was showing some different like guitar warm-up techniques for warming up and practicing and getting better with. And I was like, that's probably a great thing that I should be doing to get better. So yes, there's the argument that just by playing more and making more music, you will get better, which is absolutely true. But then there's certainly a case for intentionally practicing as well. So everybody, go tell RJ, we haven't met yet, but go subscribe to his channel and tell him Joe Gilder sent you. He lives in Nashville, I think, so we should totally hang out. Let's see. I moved into a new home. I plan on making a studio in the basement, but it is unfinished. I'm not sure where to start in making a studio. What are your thoughts on where to begin? Good question. I was talking to Tim Horsley the other day. We had a 2-day session last week, and he was talking about he just moved into a new space, and he was in like a room off the garage and a decent sized space, but the floor was carpeted. He originally thought that would be a great thing, kind of to kill a lot of reflections, because it does do that. But he started researching, and a lot of people were saying if you're going to record drums, do it on a hard surface, like maybe a small rug for the kit to keep it from slipping, but otherwise like concrete, hardwood, tile, really anything to get that first reflection off the floor. That is a part of what makes a good drum recording. I'd never heard that, but then I start thinking about all the drum sessions I've seen in like cool spaces, and a lot of them, the floors are hard. So he actually ripped up his carpet and just exposed the concrete floor underneath. He's going to get it stained and then leave it. I like that idea in the sense that if you're going to do drums especially, you can always lay down a rug and then you can take it up if you want to have more room sound, which is cool. That was my last place. We put hardwood floors down, but then I put a big rug down, and then and that was the sound of the room. That room could have used more treatment, to be honest with you. So where I would start is I wouldn't worry too much about the floors and trying to get those carpeted or treated or whatever. Biggest thing is, in an unfinished basement, whatever you're doing, you're going to want to cut down a lot of reflections. Chances are it's a very reverberant sounding space, which just isn't good. So in that sense, carpet might help you with that. Drop tile ceilings, I kind of dig them because they create another layer of like maybe a tiny bit of absorption, but then there's another like cavity above them, which I'm sure does some sort of bass trapping. I'm a total idiot when it comes to acoustic treatment, so that's as much as I'm going to tell you, because I'm starting to talk outside of what I'm comfortable with and what my expertise is, so forget it. Brian says, I've done vocal tracking while singing into a closet. It works surprisingly well. You just got to try it. You just got to try it. Do you ever use other DAWs? This is from Justin. Or are you so comfortable with Studio One now, no need to use Pro Tools ever again? So I don't use Pro Tools unless I'm at a studio that has it, which isn't super common. Steve Peffer's place has Pro Tools, so if I have to hop on and drive the session, I will do it. I still can remember the shortcuts I used Pro Tools for years. At this point, I'm probably about half and half Pro Tools and Studio One, I'm guessing, from years that I've used them. But I don't see the need to have multiple DAWs on my computer unless there's a really legit purpose. Like, I could see having Ableton Live installed because I'm going to use it in a live setting a lot. Otherwise, I don't see any reason to have Pro Tools on my computer unless I need to open sessions or Logic or Reaper. There are people who like to have lots of DAWs. I just think that's more stuff to learn, and it doesn't help me make better music, generally speaking. But to each his own. I just think if you're distracting yourself with multiple systems, you're probably avoiding making music, which I don't think is cool. More Sound Studios says, I can be creative with music all day long, but lyrics kick my... How do you come up with your lyrical ideas and hooks? I will tell you, probably the single best thing that helps me lyrically. I think I just kind of was born with a love for words and writing, so that I can't discredit that. Maybe it's just some natural. I might be naturally kind of predisposed to write. But the big thing, look over there. I've done this before. You see right there to the right on that shelf, that is probably a dozen or so journals, diaries, notebooks, whatever you want to call them. And the bulk of those are me just writing out thoughts, prayers, thinking through things, whatever. And I don't do it all the time, but through seasons of life, I've done a lot of journaling, which is writing practice. It just helps you just write and get thoughts out, which is what songwriting is. And B, it helps you process what's going on with you emotionally, which the songs you connect the most with usually are songs that are dealing with something emotionally. So there are so many times where I'll be writing about something, and then I'll go to write a song like a week later, and I'll remember this kind of epiphany I had when I was writing in my journal, and then I'll kind of flesh out that idea. So it's not like I get lyrics, specific song lines from my journal. That almost never happens. But the context and the kind of general idea of what I'm writing, it comes through because I'm taking time and doing the effort to process. I'm just living life, right? I'm not just bottling everything I feel. I'm looking at it and processing it and looking at myself kind of from third party looking in and trying to analyze and better myself as a person. And in doing so, I uncover a lot of things about myself, which is why a lot of my songs are pretty introspective, which, I don't write a lot of story songs, which I think are great. I've just never gotten into it. Maybe I will one day, but there's so much work I need to do on this guy in the mirror that I just tend to write about what's going on underneath, which are the kind of songs that I like, and the artists I connect with write that kind of stuff. So I hope that helps. Reading is also a great way to expand your vocabulary and just kind of getting used to what expression through words looks like. Do you use the mastering program that comes with Studio One Pro, the project page? Yeah, I use it all the time, especially if I'm mixing and mastering something. It's the integration between the song page and the project page is dope. Amari says, do you have a video working only with a cappella material? Yes. It's in my VIP members area, though. I recorded an a cappella song back in the spring where I recorded myself, and I recorded, I think at most there were maybe 8 to 12 vocals at one point, but I go through the whole process. So if you want to become a VIP member, it's right now, currently it's $10 a month. You can go check it out and then cancel. You can even ask for a refund if you want. HomeStudioCorner.com/VIP to check that out. Someone I've lost it was asking how the church plant is going. If you saw the couple episodes back of Gilder Cam, I'm involved with a new church plant. I put together the PA system. I'm the leading music guy. And we had our first service this past Sunday. And then, well, it was a test run service. We'll start weekly services in January. But it was good. Everything went well. The system worked like it was supposed to. It had one little hiccup towards the end, which was okay. Set up and tear down. We had time to set up. We had time to rehearse. And it was good. I mean, it wasn't the best thing ever, but it was a good step in the right direction. So, yeah, it went well. I can't complain. It's good stuff. I hear, this is from Rugged Cross Records, says, I hear you and Warren Hewart often say, don't worry about the so-called right way, just do what sounds good. But my ears trick me into thinking it's good, but later I listen and it sounds crummy. How do I fix this? You just keep doing it right now. So, okay, yesterday I spent, so as of like yesterday morning, this room was just full of boxes and cases. So the desk was here and that was it. So I spent the last 48 hours, really the last 30 hours, ripping all those boxes open, dumping everything out, and then organizing it. So I talked about that at the beginning of the podcast. But while I was doing it, I listened, for some dumb reason, I decided to listen to a bunch of my old music, like from college. Like there's a couple songs I wrote freshman year. They're just awful. Just bad. Songwriting is bad. It's super cheesy and predictable. My timing as a guitar player is awful. On one of them, bless her heart, my sweet mama bought me a keyboard, like a Yamaha PSR, like $200 keyboard for Christmas my freshman year. Well, she let me buy it. So I bought it and I brought it home, and all Christmas break I sat down with that thing, and I would record a guitar part for a song, and then I would tap out a drum beat like on the keyboard. So I'd do the hi-hat track first. And then I'd do kick and snare. Now, granted, I didn't know what a click track was. I didn't know you could record to some sort of set metronome. So I would just play the guitar, speed up, slow down, who cares? And then I would try to play drums to that. Really cheesy drum patterns, like all the cheesy fills, like digga 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 digga, really bad. So there was just nothing. I mean, it was good in the sense that like some of the chord progressions were somewhat interesting, but lyrically it was awful. Melodically, it was kind of boring and predictable. Guitar playing, I didn't think was very great. So anyway, I'm sitting here unpacking all this stuff, listening to my horrible music, and it's weirdly making me thankful that I've come so far. At the time, I remember thinking, I am the man. I remember thinking, man, this is amazing. I'm going to play this for everybody. And at the time, it was great. To me, it was great. I understand why I never went anywhere, and there wasn't somebody that swooped down and said, come on, son, I'm going to sign you a record deal because you're amazing. They just weren't that great. My songs weren't that great. The recordings were certainly not that great. There wasn't a mix to them. I didn't know what mixing was. I just bounced it down. When I was done, I added echo to the vocal. So they were awful, but at the time, I thought they were great. As I've continued to do this, continued to listen to more music, to get to know better musicians through either actually meeting them or through listening to their music, and then going back to my music, by exposing myself to really good work, it helps me see that mine isn't quite that great. Does that make sense? It's kind of like that old, I've said this 1,000 times. The story is people who can spot a counterfeit dollar bill or $100 bill, they can do so because they spend so much time studying the real thing. So if I spend a lot of time listening to great music, studying it, really trying to understand what makes it great,
and then I go back and listen to my own stuff and it doesn't measure up, then that forces me to write a better song next time, to come up with a better chord progression, to do that work on the front end, to take all the time I need to get the recording right and the mix right and all these things that we talk about all the time. So I don't know. I forget who even asked the question, but it was Rugged Cross Records. If you think it sounds crummy and your ears are tricking you, that's just a part of the process. Go find someone who can give you some advice, or just do it again. And you got to learn that sometimes your ears will not be trustworthy, and that's just a part of the problem too. Chris says, I'm pre-fighting mixes to wind up on a summer mixer at a local studio. Well, that wasn't a question. All right. Let's go find some more questions. What's your favorite electric guitar tone ever? I'm not sure, Jason, if you're asking like on an album or just like when I'm playing, but I love right now, if you could give me just one guitar, one pedal, one amp, it would be a Gibson 335 through a blues driver into that Fender Deluxe Reverb over there. I could do that all day long. All day long. Drum tone, I don't know. I can't think off the top of my head. I really do love the new War on Drugs record, though. It's got a lot of cool stuff in there. Matt Vinhouse says, hey, Joe, I recently moved from Texas to Ohio for my fiance. Any advice on networking in a tiny new area to try to get studio business going where I don't know anyone? Matt, I mean, that's a great question, and it's the right question. I think you just got to do it. Whether you had a studio business or a landscaping business, you got to go meet people. Go to where the musicians are. If you play anything, go start playing at wherever you can play. It's really just a matter of getting in there and starting to meet people and intentionally becoming friends and developing relationships with people so that maybe a year and a half from now, they'll have a gig for you. I think the biggest thing people want to do is go to a writer's night and then like spam everyone there to try to get them to come to your studio. If you did that to me, I would have zero interest. I will tell you one thing that might kind of work. I had a guy, he was running, when I did remember about a year ago, I was on the local radio station, Lightning 100, as their Artist of the Week, and they did a little showcase at the end of the week. And the sound guy, a super cool guy, he, at the end of the show, just gave me his card and was like, hey, man, if you ever want to record anything. And that I thought was kind of cool. He didn't push it on me, but he ran sound. He did a good job, so I knew he had at least some talent in that area. And if I was if I couldn't record my own stuff and I was looking for somebody to record, that'd be kind of cool. I would say just find ways to be useful. If you can start a writer's night where you set up a rig and you record everyone at the writer's night and they get those recordings for free, that's really cool. That's something that I would think is valuable as a musician in that area. Start a writer's night and invite people to it. I'm a big fan of being proactive versus trying to do marketing. I don't care for post a Craigslist ad and get people in. You can try that, but to me, what's more cool and more exciting is to just create things. Like an example, and I'm not saying this to toot my own horn. It's actually a good example. You may have seen in the last episode of Gilder Camp, and last week, I had another 2 days in the studio at Steve Peffer's place where we were tracking full band stuff for people's songs. They could send us one song. One guy sent us 8 songs, and we recorded those songs in a 2-day period. That's not something someone approached me and said, hey, could you do this? I put that together first. So I met Steve, and we went to church together. I did a couple sessions at his place, and I said, man, what if we got together like drums, bass, guitar, keys, and we said, hey, we're going to record your stuff, send us your song, and we charged X amount per song. And we tried it, and I promoted it out to you people, and some of you said, yeah, that sounds great, I'll take that, and you bought it. And so now we've done that probably 6, 7, 8 times now, and we've honed the process and gotten better at it. But it wasn't that I sat around and hoped, I hope somebody calls me today to say, will you track drums, bass, guitar, and keys on one song for me? No one would ever have thought to do that until I created an opportunity for them. So I don't know. I'm a big fan of thinking like an entrepreneur and coming up with ways to create value. I just think there's just so much good that can come from that. And even if the thing you create doesn't work or it flops or it doesn't, make any money or it doesn't do what you expect it to do, you still are creating connection. And that's the thing that drives this whole business is connection. Simon Karlstead, my favorite person. I was going to say Nordic person. I don't know if is that offensive? I say Nordic? I just have to say Swedish. Or is it Norway? I always forget. It's Sweden. I don't know why I get those confused. It's because I'm an arrogant American. I apologize. Says, question, I will do my first concert where I will be singing this Friday. Do you have any tips regarding singing live? I would say yes. Are you going to have in-ears or wedges? Either way, make sure your vocal is plenty loud in your monitors. And then don't back off the mic. Make sure you can hear yourself. I think the biggest thing for me is when I'm not sure if I'm on pitch, all my confidence goes. Even though I could just perform really well and just kind of hope for the best, and even though there's a good chance I'm probably close to on pitch, just given like where I am as a singer, but if I can't hear myself well, I'm going to have a hard time feeling confident to take any chances or to really engage the crowd because I'm sitting there, I'm in my head thinking, I think I'm off pitch, I think I'm flat, Oh, am I sharp? I don't know. I can't hear myself. So I think biggest thing is make sure you can hear yourself. I would for you, Simon, specifically, since I know you've been a guitar player longer than you've been a singer, I would even sacrifice if you can't hear your guitar very well because that's just going to flow and you're going to be fine on guitar. Sacrifice some guitar volume to make sure you can hear yourself singing, and I think you're going to be great. Also, have fun. I mean, you know this. You're a performer. Engage. Singing, I think there's a special, like being a guitar player in a band is super fun, but then being actually like the front man and singing, it's probably the most engaging thing you can do musically. So enjoy what you're doing. Have fun. I feel like the couple shows I played last year with a full band, I wasn't super comfortable, and I wish I'd enjoyed myself more. I was focused on all the other stuff and didn't spend a ton of time making sure that I was just having fun and enjoying it. I did some, but you know what I mean. How do you separate, this is Scott's question, how do you separate the recording and mixing phases? I'm a Dueling Mixes member, and it seems like the tracks we get have already been treated pretty well most of the time. See, Scott, that's the whole point. When I say things like get it right at the source, what I'm saying is when you're done recording, the tracks should already sound mixed. Like they should already sound really, really good. That's how you know you've done a good job. If you have to do so much to fix your tracks when it comes to time to mix, you're not very good at recording tracks yet, and that needs to be your focus. Yes, of course, still mix them and get good at mixing and learn how to fix bad tracks because that's a valuable skill set in and of itself. But the thing about dueling mixes, and one of the kind of side benefits that we've seen over the years, is people get to practice mixing, yes, but the bigger thing is they get to hear what good tracks sound like. And they may realize, oh, you know what? I am good at mixing. I'm just not good at recording. And it forces them to go back and be better at recording because they recognize it's not which plugins you have that makes you great. A lot of times the tracks are already really good. Yes, Tiki, I do have a cold. It's been moving week, and having a cold and not getting much sleep and not eating well has just been awesome. Johnny Lipsum says, record like there's no mixing and mix like there's no mastering. I like that. I love the idea of if I'm recording to imagine in my head that I'm going to send these tracks to somebody else. Somebody else is going to mix them. And I don't want to leave anything open to chance. I don't want to record a bad track because if they don't fix it, then it's going to sound bad in the mix. So I will do what I need to do to that track on the way in. Don't feel bad for me. I just sound a little more lazily than normal. Okay. Let's find another question. How do you distinguish someone's opinion on your mix from something you think sounds really good? So you mean you did a mix. Someone says this is garbage, but you legit think it's good? I think... I think there's different phases. When you're early in the process and you're not super great at it yet, and admittedly you don't feel like you have any confidence in what you're doing, I would tend to appreciate opinions more and just learn from them. Now, I don't necessarily take a random YouTuber's comment with too much weight versus like a good friend, but I would find people you trust that you can say, hey, I like you, I trust your kind of taste in music, would you like to listen to this and give me some honest feedback? I think, first of all, give them permission to tear it apart. If you just say, hey, what do you think about this? They don't know if you're just asking them to just say, hey, I love it, just because you just need a little confidence boost, or if you're legitimately wanting them to like tear it apart. I would go for the second one. It hurts, but if it's someone you respect and you know they're coming from a good place, then you can listen to it and say, okay, all right, cool. You may still disagree with some of the stuff they say, and that's okay too. Great example of this is, okay, and sorry, let me back up. And at some point after doing this long enough, you'll get to a point where it's becoming more subjective. There are no, you won't have any major flaws in your mix. It'll just be more of a subjective thing. Maybe you like a little more low end, or maybe you like your mixes to be brighter. And then it's just a matter of, as long as you're within like a certain range of acceptable amounts of low end and high end, so that it would still, if someone listened to it, they would still say, hey, that's a good mix, then you're good. An example of that is dueling mixes. Graham Cochran and I mix the same song every month, a different song every month. We both mix it, and then we post our mixes for people to hear, and the people will vote. And almost, there have been a handful of times where when Graham has won the votes, I've listened and said, you know what, yeah, I like his mix better. He did a better job. But there, more often than not, I'll listen back to both, and I'll like my mix better. The reason is I made it sound like I wanted it to sound, and I made the sound that I had in my head for this song, I made it come out of the speakers. Now, it may just be that my preference of how I want it to sound doesn't connect with as many people as the way Graham might want it to sound. He's been on a roll the last like 6 months. I think he's won every month. Even in this last 6 months, I've liked my mix better than his. There are elements of his mix I like better than mine, but all in all, I like my mix sound better because that's my creative spin on that particular song that I want it to do. It's just like there are some bands that will have huge followings, and there'll be some that have a smaller kind of cult following. You got to just kind of do what you're comfortable. Once you get to a certain level of competence, then it's all subjective. But until you get there, you might need to lean more heavily on people's opinions. But then you'll get to a point where someone will say, like just the other day on YouTube, someone said, Joe, you use too much delay on your vocals. And my response was, I love delay. And I just let it go. He was talking specifically about the song Someone to Blame. He's not the only person to tell me there was too much. He was not the only person to tell me that it was too much delay on there, but I don't care because I love the way it sounds. And ultimately, that's what matters. You don't want to be so like head in the sand, plug your ears that you don't listen to good, wise advice. But then on the flip side, you don't want to listen to everybody, so you don't actually make what you want to make. You got to make the art that you were made to create, and I guess just don't forget that part of it. Hoodle-doo. Ben Holmes says, get a critique from Joe, then you'll know from someone you trust if the mix is good. Yeah, if you happen to like what I do and you've listened to my stuff and you like the way it sounds, then yeah, you can hire me to do a critique. Go to homestudiocorner.com/critiques, and you can buy a critique, and once a week I sit down and do those. I'll record myself just like this, listening to it, and then I'll send you an audio, and Ben has done so many of those at this point. And it's been a cool little workflow. He gets to check it with me before he finishes up. So if I hear any kind of glaring issues that I think might need to be fixed before he releases the song, we do that. And it's been really super fun. Also, it's just fun for me to hear people progress, like to hear people like Ben and Simon, who's here on the chat, and how they've gotten so much better over the years. It's super dope. I got a few more minutes before my voice is gone. Sebastian says, hi, Joe. I also have the M-Audio EX66s, which are these beautiful suckers right there, those big, tall, dual monitor or dual woofer speakers. And he says, boodle-boob, mine have a hiss, considerably louder than other monitors. I have heard. Do yours have this hiss too? No. I mean, if you get close, there's some, but it's not noticeably loud. It could just be the monitors. It could be the power supply that you're feeding them into, or they could just be going bad. Do you typically mix only CCM? No, I don't hardly mix any CCM. Mostly rock and folk for the most part. A lot of people I mix end up incidentally being Christians, but I wouldn't say it's like contemporary Christian music for the most part. What tips do you have for making drums recorded in a tiny room sound huge? Try to record them as dry as possible. Don't have any room sound, and then add in some sort of reverb after the fact, or add in some distortion to make them huge. A lot of folks have been talking about this idea of putting a mic kind of above the snare, pointing kind of, and not to be crass, at the drummer's crotch, so it grabs some of the snare sound and some of the kick sound, and then just compress the daylights out of that. That can be a really cool trick to give some big sound. Also, you need a drummer who plays a good kit and can play it in a way that's big. That's probably the bigger suggestion. How do you deal with clients holding up a project but without damaging the relationship between both parts, understanding that the client could be a real boost to your home studio? You got the biggest thing I could say with client work is set the microphone. What did I just say microphone for? Set expectations well beforehand. Imagine, nobody likes to think that it's going to go bad. Nobody likes to think things are going to get sideways, but they do sometimes. And if you've set a lot of expectations beforehand, then you can say, hey, bub, listen, remember how when we first started this project, I said this? That's what we need to do. And they can say, yeah, I remember that. That's great. That doesn't mean you're going to avoid all awkwardness, but it gives you kind of something to hold on to when things get a little squirrely. A buddy of mine just did a session with a producer in town, and they had agreed to a number of songs, and my buddy wanted to add another song real quick, like a piano song. And the guy said, hey, this is what we budgeted for. This is what I've committed to time-wise. Remember how we talked all about that, and that's what we committed to. I can't do another song. It's not a part of our deal. And it was a little awkward, but even my buddy was impressed that the guy was able to just stick to his guns and, keep his commitment, but also like kind of push back and say, no, you don't get everything you want. You've paid for this and you're going to get this, but I'm not going to keep doing more stuff for free for you. So, be as accommodating as you can, especially if it's early on for you, but ultimately, you got to meet expectations and you got to wow them. And that doesn't always mean being a pushover, but it does mean doing good work. All right. I think that's all my little voice will handle for today. Thanks so much for everyone who attended live. We went a little longer today. Hope it was good for you. I had a lot of fun. I'll see you next week. I'm back. I was just kidding. It's not over. Well, it is over. But now it's the show after the show, the encore, where the guy comes out and plays in the parking lot after the show is over. Not really. I probably can't spend too much time answering your questions, but I do need to get this edited down, and I do appreciate y'all being here. Y'all are awesome. We had a big crew today. If I missed your question, I'm super sorry. We had a big crowd today. I'm thankful for that, but I know that means your questions sometimes don't get answered. So, hi, everybody. Welcome to Ask Joe number 211 this is the first thing I've done from... Hi, everybody. Welcome to Ask Joe number 211. I can see deer walking out over there. Sorry, I need to mix this thing real quick, like... I can see deer walking out over there. Which is cool. So, So thank you for all of you. Got a lot of folks here live. Probably the biggest crowd we've had live in a long time. So hi, everybody. Hello. Thanks for being here. I'm going to answer your questions, all you live folks. If you want to have questions about studio setup organization, because I've been in that world for the last 48 hours, or just questions in general, excuse me, about anything that's on your little heart, I will do my best to answer as many as I can. Okay, that feels good. This is Ask Joe number 211, the new studio / frazzled edition. This is Ask Joe number 211, the new studio / frazzled edition. This is Ask Joe number 211, the new studio / frazzled edition. This is Ask Joe number 211, the new studio. Let's check on headphones. I'm losing... I haven't been in this room for more than like a minute. This is Ask Joe number 211, This is Ask Joe number 211, the new studio / frazzled edition. This is Ask Joe number 211, the new studio / frazzled edition. This is Ask Joe number 211, the new studio / frazzled edition.
This is Ask Joe number 211, the new studio / frazzled edition. This is Ask Joe number 211, the new studio / frazzled edition. This is Ask Joe number 211, the new studio / frazzled edition. This is Ask Joe number 211, the new studio / All right, that feels good enough. Sorry. This is Ask... Okay, that's enough. That's enough. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Ask Joe number 211. I don't like that sound at all. 11 from... This is the first thing I've done from my new studio. You may think, Joe, didn't you just move like 10 minutes ago? All right, let's get the meter looking right, because I've lost all perspective on this project. You may think, Joe, didn't you just move like 10 minutes ago? Yep. But that's neither here nor there. I have moved again. We found a new ugly house to go renovate, and my wife's going to make it pretty. It'll take us a little while. We'll get there. And the studio, the basement, is actually finished. Let me give you a quick tour. I gave folks who were here early a tour real quick. But, sorry, I know this is boring. Y'all can leave. You may think, Joe, didn't you just move like 10 minutes ago? Yep. But that's neither here nor there. I have moved again. We found a new ugly house to go renovate, and my wife's going to make it pretty. It'll take us a little while. We'll get there. And the studio, the basement, is actually finished. Let me give you a quick tour. I gave folks who were here early a tour real quick. But, hi, camera. So if we look around, over here we've got some mic locker action. Got my amps back there and a desk. Place to sit, fireplace, guitars, bathroom, keyboard, some treatment. I've still got to figure out the treatment side of things. And if we look behind the desk, power cables in another, and then like computer digital cables in another, which is pretty sweet. Boom. I was trying to be all cute and get the boom in there, and I forgot where it was supposed to. Look at that. I mean, I got it in there, but it was awkward. Welcome back. It's time for your questions. So shoot your questions over in the chat, and I will answer as many as I can. Remember, two things to remember. One, ask your questions because there's a good chance that somebody else has that same question. And you asking it, they may not be able to attend live, or they may be too shot. Boom. Sorry, it's just, yeah. But my ears trick me into thinking it's good, but later I listen and it sounds crummy. Ooh, I sound like so bad with this cold. Let's just start over. But my ears trick me into thinking it's good, but later I listen and it sounds crummy. How do I fix this? You just keep doing it right now. So, okay, yesterday I spent, so as of like yesterday morning, this room was just full of boxes and cases. So the desk was here and that was it. So I spent the last 48 hours, really the last 30 hours, ripping all those boxes open, dumping everything out, and then organizing it. So I talked about that at the beginning of the podcast. But while I was doing it, I listened, for some dumb reason, I decided to listen to a bunch of my old music, like from college. Like there's a couple songs I wrote freshman year. They're just awful. Just bad. Songwriting is bad. It's super cheesy and predictable. My timing as a guitar player is awful. On one of them, bless her heart, my sweet mama. That feels better. Man. But my ears trick me into thinking it's good, but later I listen and it sounds crummy. How do I fix this? You just keep doing it right now. So, okay, yesterday. All right, that's good enough. I need to get my SM7 fixed. Up a project, but without damaging the relationship between both parties. If it's early on for you, but live, we went a little longer today. Hope it was good for you. I had a lot of fun. I'll see you next week. That's good enough for today. We'll get it. We'll get it tweaked. I know I said that last week, but I legit just don't. Also used a different thing in between the mic and the deal. So we'll dial it in. Thank y'all so much for being here. Yeah, I did change the clip gain, but I also talked a lot louder. That's part of the problem. Ask Joe number 211, the new studio / frazzled edition. All right, I'm sorry. This whole after part has been super awkward. Thank you for being here. Thank you for hanging out. I gotta go. I'll see y'all around. Happy Thanksgiving.